I wasn't looking for anything. It was just another Tuesday night. I had finished dinner, cleaned up the dishes, and sat down in the living room while Claire was upstairs getting ready for bed. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing strange, until I found the article. It started with a notification, an email from a news site I didn't even remember subscribing to. Local obituaries, this week's notices. I hovered over it, debating whether to delete it. I almost did, but something made me click. Maybe boredom, maybe curiosity, maybe something else. The page loaded. A list of names, people I didn't know. I scrolled mindlessly, and then I stopped, because there, near the bottom of the page, was a name I did know. A name I knew better than my own. Claire Reeves. My wife. My stomach tightened. I stared at the name, blinking hard, waiting for it to change. Maybe I was seeing things. Maybe it was a coincidence. But then I read the rest. Claire Marie Reeves, 32, passed away unexpectedly in her home on September 14th. She is survived by her loving husband, Daniel Reeves, and her parents, Richard and Anna Calloway. I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me, because that was her name, her exact name. And September 14th? That was today. I forced myself to breathe. This was a mistake. It had to be. Maybe it was someone else named Claire Reeves. Maybe the website had bad information. But the obituary continued. Claire was born in Ashford, Michigan, and attended Lakeview High School before pursuing a degree in interior design. She met her husband, Daniel, in 2014, and they married in 2017. She was known for her kindness, creativity, and deep love for animals. Every detail was right. Claire was born in Ashford. She did go to Lakeview High. We did meet in 2014. We were married in 2017. I read the paragraph over and over, my hands going numb. This wasn't a coincidence. This was her. But Claire wasn't dead. She was upstairs right now, brushing her teeth. I forced out a shaky laugh. It had to be a prank. Or some kind of identity theft. I grabbed my phone, my fingers clumsy. I needed to show Claire. I needed her to tell me this was stupid, meaningless. But then I noticed something else. At the bottom of the obituary, there was a guest book. People had been leaving messages. I scrolled through them, my heart hammering, and my blood turned to ice. I still can't believe you're gone, Claire. You were such a bright light in this world. Rest easy. Daniel, if you see this, I'm so sorry for your loss. She loved you so much. We'll miss you forever, Claire. Heaven gained an angel. Message after message. From real people. People who believed she was actually dead. And then I saw a comment from Claire's mother. We love you, sweetheart. We'll never forget you. I stared at the words, my vision swimming. This had to be a mistake. A glitch. But if that was true, why was Claire's mother playing along? I bolted upstairs. My head was spinning. I needed Claire to see this, to explain this. I pushed open the bedroom door, and Claire was standing in front of the mirror, her back to me, not moving, not brushing her teeth, just standing there, staring at her reflection, like she had been waiting for me. Claire didn't move, didn't blink. She just stood there, facing the mirror, completely still. The reflection of her eyes locked onto mine, even though she hadn't turned around. I swallowed hard. Claire! She flinched, like she hadn't heard me come in. Then, too quickly, too smoothly, she turned. Her face broke into a warm, sleepy smile. Hey babe, you okay? Like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't just found her own obituary. I tried to speak, but the words got caught in my throat. I had been so sure something was off. So sure that when I walked in, I would find something horrible. But she looked normal, tired, in her pajamas, her damp hair sticking to her shoulders. Like Claire. Like my wife. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe the website had been some elaborate mistake. Or maybe I was going insane. Claire frowned. You're pale. She stepped closer. Are you feeling okay? I forced a smile. Yeah, just got distracted reading something weird online. She rolled her eyes, smirking. Let me guess. Another creepy news article? You know that stuff gives you nightmares. I let out a nervous laugh. Yeah, guess I should cut back. I didn't tell her. Not yet. Because what was I supposed to say? Hey honey, I found an obituary about you. But don't worry, I'm sure you're not actually dead? No, I needed to figure this out first. So I kissed her goodnight, told her I'd be up soon. And when she climbed into bed, I went back downstairs, back to my laptop, back to the obituary. And that's when I noticed something I had missed. Something that made my stomach turn. The funeral home's website. There was a link. Join us for Claire's memorial service this Friday. My hands trembled as I clicked. The page loaded. A formal announcement from Bradley and Sons Funeral Home. Claire's full name. A photo of her, one I had never seen before. And beneath it, an address. Not just an address. A location. Where Claire's service was supposed to be held. I didn't think. I just grabbed my keys. I had to see for myself. Had to prove that this was some mistake. I checked my watch. 11:47 p.m. The funeral home was 30 minutes away. I'd be back before Claire even noticed I was gone. By the time I got there, the parking lot was empty. The lights inside were off. The whole place felt wrong, like it had been closed for years. But I had to be sure. I stepped out of the car, heart pounding. Walked up to the front doors. Pressed my face against the glass. And froze. Because inside, in the dim glow of the exit sign, there was a casket, sitting in the middle of the room, completely alone, waiting. I tried the door. Locked. I knocked, but no one answered. The funeral home wasn't open this late. But that casket, why was it just sitting there? And more importantly, who was inside? My mouth was dry. I knew I should leave. Go home. Forget about this. But something about that casket felt personal. Like it was waiting for me. I walked around the building, looking for another way in. Then I saw it, an unlocked side door, slightly open, like someone had left in a hurry, or like someone wanted me to come inside. I stepped into the darkness. The air was stale, heavy with the smell of flowers and chemicals. Somewhere in the distance, a clock ticked loudly, the only sound in the entire building. I moved toward the main hall, toward the casket. Every step felt wrong, like I was moving toward something I wasn't supposed to see. But I had to know. I had to be sure. I reached out and lifted the lid, and what I saw inside made my entire body go cold. Because lying inside the casket, dressed in a black funeral gown, hands folded neatly over her chest, was Claire. My legs locked. My mind refused to accept what I was seeing. But it was her, Claire. Her face was too pale. Her lips a shade too dark. Her hands folded over her stomach like she had been placed there with care. Like she had been prepared. For burial. I staggered back. The room spun around me. This wasn't real. Couldn't be. Claire was at home. In our bed. But I couldn't deny what was right in front of me. The funeral home had her body. Which meant I had brought someone else home. My hands shook violently. I had to get out. I had to go home. I slammed the casket shut, turned, and that's when I saw it. The guest book, sitting on a small table near the casket. Its pages were blank, except for one signature. At the bottom of the page, Claire Reeves. My pulse thundered. She had signed this herself? That wasn't possible. I looked at the date. She had signed it yesterday. One day after she was supposed to be dead. I backed away. My breath came in sharp bursts. This was a nightmare. A sick joke. But deep down I knew something was wrong with Claire. And I needed to get home. Now, I don't even remember getting in my car. One moment I was in the funeral home. The next, I was speeding down the empty highway. The headlights cut through the darkness. But it felt like I wasn't alone in the car. Like something was watching me. I checked the rearview mirror. Nothing. Just my own terrified reflection. My mind was racing. If Claire was in that casket, then who had I been eating dinner with? Who had I been sleeping next to? I pressed the gas harder. The house was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that felt deliberate. like someone was waiting for me to walk in. I stepped inside, heart hammering. The lights were still on. The TV was playing one of those late-night infomercials. Everything looked normal, but it didn't feel normal. I listened. No movement upstairs. Maybe Claire was asleep. Maybe she was just a dream, and I would wake up and everything would be fine. Maybe. A creak from the kitchen. I turned fast. Claire. No response. I swallowed hard and stepped closer. The kitchen light was off, but there was someone standing in the dark. I could barely make out her shape. Thin. Still. Facing the wall. Not moving. Claire. I whispered again. Slowly, too slowly. She turned her head toward me. Not all the way. Just enough for me to see her mouth. Curved into a smile. I froze. She didn't say anything. Didn't explain why she was just standing in the dark. I took a step back. What are you doing? I asked. The smile didn't fade. She tilted her head. You were out late, she said softly. The tone was wrong. Too even. Too calm. Like she was repeating something she had learned. I forced a chuckle. Yeah. I got caught up with work. A lie. She didn't blink. Just stood there. Smiling. Watching. And then she took a step forward. You didn't tell me you were going out, she said. I swallowed. I didn't want to wake you. Her smile widened. You always wake me. The air felt thick. The house felt wrong. I needed to play this carefully. I'm exhausted, I said quickly. Let's go to bed. Her head tilted again, like she was processing my words. Then finally she nodded. Okay. She turned toward the stairs. Started walking up. But the way she moved, it wasn't her. Her steps were too light, too careful, like she was imitating human movement. I waited until she was out of sight. Then I exhaled, gripping the counter to keep from shaking. I needed a plan. I needed proof that I wasn't losing my mind. I reached for my phone, and then I saw it. Something on the kitchen table. A small piece of paper, folded neatly. My stomach turned. I picked it up, unfolded it, and in my own handwriting, I saw the words, "Don't let her know." The paper trembled in my hands. The handwriting was mine, but I hadn't written this. Had I? I forced myself to breathe, to think. I needed to stay calm. I needed to pretend. Because if I had left this note for myself, then that meant I had already figured something out before. And I had already been in danger before. A floorboard creaked upstairs. I folded the note, shoved it into my pocket, then turned off the kitchen light and headed for the bedroom. The second I stepped inside, Claire turned toward me. She was already in bed, already under the covers, lying perfectly still, eyes wide open, smiling, waiting. Did you brush your teeth? She asked softly. Her voice was too even, too carefully controlled. I nodded. Yeah. She tilted her head. I didn't hear the water run. I felt my pulse spike. She was testing me, seeing if I would slip up. I forced a chuckle. Must have been quiet. You ready for bed? She watched me too closely. Then finally she nodded. I'm always ready. I climbed into bed, turned onto my side, facing away from her. But I could still feel her eyes on me. Still feel the weight of her unnatural silence. I shut my eyes, tried to breathe normally, but I knew, deep down, she wasn't sleeping. She was just waiting for me to fall asleep first. And there was no way in hell I was going to let that happen. The night watch. I lay there perfectly still for what felt like hours. Claire didn't move, didn't shift, didn't sigh or fidget or adjust the covers. Nothing. At some point, I glanced at the clock. 3:09 a.m. Then, I heard it. A sound so subtle, so quiet, I almost missed it. A soft, slow creak, like the mattress shifting, like someone leaning forward. My skin crawled. She was sitting up, and she thought I was asleep. I forced my breathing to stay steady. I shut, body completely still. I listened. Another creak. The sound of sheets rustling. She was moving. But where was she going? I wanted to look, wanted to turn. But I knew deep down I couldn't, because if she caught me watching her, what would she do? Then the floor creaked. I heard her step away from the bed. Another step. Then another. Slow. Careful. And then, silence. I waited. Counted the seconds in my head. 1, 2, 3. I cracked my eyes open. Just barely. Just enough to see the shadow at the foot of the bed. Just enough to see Claire standing there. Not moving. Not breathing. Just watching me. A chill ran down my spine. I stayed still. Kept my breathing even. But my heart was hammering. She knew. She had to know. Why else would she just be standing there? Then, a new sound. Not from the room. Not from Claire. From downstairs. The front door. A soft knock. Once. Twice. I almost stopped breathing. Because if Claire was standing right here, then who the hell was at the door? I stayed frozen. The knock came again. Then, from the darkness, Claire spoke. Don't answer that. Her voice was flat. Empty. No curiosity. No concern. Like she already knew who it was. Like she already knew why they were here. The knocking stopped. Silence. The tension in the room was unbearable. Then, footsteps. Moving away. Heading toward the street. And that's when I heard it. A voice. Muffled. Distant. But unmistakable. Daniel. I recognized it immediately. Because it was Claire's. My real wife. Calling out for me. Daniel. The voice outside was desperate. Claire's voice. But Claire was also standing right in front of me. Motionless. Watching. Smiling. The room felt smaller. The walls too close. I forced myself to move. To sit up in bed. Who is that? I asked. Claire's head tilted, her smile never fading. No one. Another knock. Louder this time. Daniel, please, open the door. Claire's eyes darkened. She wants you to let her in. I swallowed hard. Who? Someone who doesn't belong here. I slid out of bed. Claire didn't stop me. Didn't move. Just stood there. Smiling. I walked past her. Through the hallway. Down the stairs. And when I reached the door, I hesitated. What if she was right? What if the person outside was an imposter? Daniel, I know this is confusing, but you have to listen to me. My breath hitched. That voice sounded so much like her. I reached for the handle. Then a whisper behind me. Don't. I turned. Claire was standing on the stairs, half hidden in the dark. She's lying. So are you? I shot back. For the first time, her smile faltered. My pulse pounded. I needed proof. Something. I pulled the note from my pocket. The one written in my own handwriting. Don't let her know. I held it up. What is this? Claire stared at it. Then she started laughing. The sound was wrong. Like a bad recording, warped and echoing. Like she wasn't really laughing. Then she stopped. All at once. Her face went blank. She took one slow step forward. I didn't want you to remember. I stumbled back. The knocking outside grew frantic. Daniel, whatever you do, don't let her touch you. Claire lunged. Her hand closed around my wrist. And the moment she touched me, the memories came flooding back. I saw myself. Not here. Not in my house. But in a hospital. Strapped to a gurney. Wires on my head. Doctors talking in hushed voices. And Claire, my real Claire, standing over me, crying. He doesn't recognize me. Her voice was shaky. One of the doctors sighed. The procedure is delicate. We're suppressing certain memories while allowing others to resurface naturally. It takes time. Claire swallowed hard. And what if it doesn't work? The doctor hesitated. Then he may never truly remember you. The vision snapped away. I was back in my house. Back in my living room. Claire's grip tight on my wrist. I wrenched away, my breath ragged. You're not my wife. She didn't deny it. Didn't even blink. Just smiled again. You were happier this way, Daniel. My mind raced. The procedure. The hospital. The memories I had forgotten. And the truth hit me all at once. Claire was dead. She had died months ago. And I hadn't been able to accept it. So I had gone through some kind of treatment. A way to suppress the pain. To live in a world where she was still alive. But it had gone wrong. I wasn't supposed to remember any of this. I was supposed to be happy, living in a house with a wife who didn't exist. But something had cracked. Something had let the truth bleed through. And now Claire, or whatever she was trying to keep me here. "You don't have to leave," she whispered. "You can stay with me. Forever." Her hands reached for me again. I backed away. Then, without thinking, I threw open the door. The cold air hit me like a shock. And there she was, Claire. My real Claire. Or at least, who she used to be. Her eyes were red from crying. Her clothes were the same ones she wore in my vision. She looked at me, voice breaking. "Daniel, please. You have to wake up." Behind me, I felt Claire's presence. Her shadow stretching against the wall. "She's lying," she whispered. I turned to face her. Her smile was gone. For the first time she looked afraid, like she knew I was about to make a choice. My hands shook violently. I had to decide. I had to trust one of them. The woman at the door, begging me to wake up. Or the woman inside, offering me a perfect life built on a lie. If I stepped outside, this world would collapse. I would wake up in that hospital, alone. But if I stayed, I would never know the truth. I would never know what really happened. I looked back one last time. Claire's eyes were filled with sorrow. "Please," she whispered, "come back to me." I took a deep breath. And then, I stepped outside. The moment I crossed the threshold, everything shattered. The house flickered. The air rippled. And then, darkness. I woke up to the sound of machines beeping. The air smelled like disinfectant. I was lying in a hospital bed. Thin, weak, like I had been here for a long time. And sitting next to me, crying into her hands, was Claire's mother. She gasped when she saw me move. "Oh my God, Daniel?" I tried to speak. My throat was raw. "Where's Claire?" Her face crumpled. Her hands covered her mouth. And then, finally, she told me the truth. Claire had died in a car accident. I had been in a coma ever since. The procedure. The doctors had tried it as a last resort to bring me back, to help me accept reality. And somehow, it had worked. I stared at the ceiling, at the empty room. Claire was gone. And the life I had been living had never been real.